All right, I think we're good. So what we're going to do, Tiff, is you're going to take us to the outro. Are you familiar with how to do that?
I also, listen, no offense, and the beer's all over my face. I have more questions for Gus.
All right, let's do it.
Let's go.
I think this is the question that everyone wants to know. Do you have any tattoos?
Cut.
Yeah, so WEBN was doing a contest for worst tattoo, and
I feel like I heard you won.
just wondering if you were entered that.
Don't worry, you're cutting this. If this goes on, I'm going to break your camera over your
So I've seen the tattoo. I know what the tattoo is, and everyone else here.
You can keep talking about it. There's no way this hits air. I'll put that in. Cheers, cheers, cheers.
I got the baby one. You gotta choose that one. That's delicious. Welcome to Fretboard TV episode 4. You've met me before, Tiffany, the assistant taproom manager, the dancer, the fun one. This is Gus, aka also Dan. That's a fun story. And Brad Davidson, who does a little bit of everything. But talk about yourselves, guys.
So my actual name is Daniel.
Yeah.
Gustafson. I go by Gus because it's just a nickname. And here I am the taproom manager and do whatever needs to be done around here. Brad?
I do deliveries here. I do multiple things. I do the inventory, move stuff around, keep everything in certain spots where it needs to be. I deliver. I do anything from delivering a couple cases to Kroger to delivering a bunch of kegs to a festival or something like that. So, yeah, it's fun here. I like working here. Me and Gus have known each other for a long time. Probably, all the way back to 5th grade.
Something like that.
So, how did you come to Fretboard? How did you meet these guys?
So it's actually an interesting kind of story because I was good friends with a guy that Jeremy Bowman, who is one of the owners of our restaurant that's in-house, Smoked Out Cincy. And he's been part of Jefferson Social and O'Brien's and a bunch of different places. And what essentially happened was when I was living in Oakley, he still lives in Oakley. He said, hey, I'm going to go to Madtree with these guys, and we're going to talk. They're talking about opening up a brewery. It's guys that used to play music at my at Jefferson Hall when it was in Newport. I said, okay, cool. Or maybe it might have been before Newport. It might have been when they were on in OTR. And Jeremy says, yeah, we're going to meet with these guys because if they open a brewery, I'm going to run the tap room, and you can be my assistant manager. It's like, that sounds cool. Like, I've been working in the bar for a long time, but I love beer, so it'd be a fun thing to do. I was in. And he kept going. So we met him, this probably 5 years ago now. I think Joe or Jim picked me up in like a minivan at my house in Oakley.
Get in the van.
I mean, legitimately, like it was a cool van, but either way, so he picked me up. And we went down to Madtree, just having beers, and it was very informal. And they just started talking about it, and this is what the idea is, because if you've seen Joe's interview, the whole thing came from S23. So that was sort of where it all had started, because Jeremy had introduced me to what at the time was Six String Brew Works, which became Fretboard, and he was just talking about it, and it was like I was in. I mean, Joe was an engaging guy. He was a fun guy. It was interesting. I was in. So from that point, it was a matter of what the timetable is, and it took a while. And at some point, then Jeremy actually was unable to do it because he owns or is part of other restaurants and has other liquor licenses and things like that. I think he gave me a call when I was at work one night when I was working in Oakley, and he said,
"Hey man, if you can get some money together, you can get in on Fretboards."
And I said,
well, I think I got it. Like, what's the deal?
He told me that he couldn't do this.
He said, I think you can do it.
And I said,
absolutely, I can do it. Like, I'm in.
And that's sort of where it was. And then I met with Joe and Jim and Brad, and we kind of just worked it out where I was going to come in and then run the tap room, and sort of the rest is history, I guess.
What's your best memory working here so far?
The coolest thing was opening the grand opening, or it's tough because OTT Fest, and we did the outdoor festival. It's just so much work, and you put so much time into it. So grand opening was very similar to that, where we, I had literally walked. I think maybe I was the second employee. I think Brad our brewer plank was probably the first one. But it's where I was literally putting shelves on the bar and getting everything in and setting this up and trying to get everybody trained and trying to get everything going. And when you see that at the grand opening and it actually works and people come in, it's like, thank God. But then OTT Fest was the same way, where we put so much time and effort in, and you sat through all the meetings with me, and every single time, and Mitch sat through all the meetings with me, and we're sitting there and we're trying to figure out how to put this festival on and how to try to make this work. And then when you see it and it comes out, the bands are awesome and the area is awesome, even though it's a ton of work and I was exhausted. It was cool. Like it was.
Yeah, you had Bootsy Collins up there tapping beers.
I mean, it's crazy.
It was awesome.
Like, how do we get
really
like?
Cool.
It's crazy how that comes together and we're able to do that. And then you see the end result and the kind of at the end of. So I would say OTT Fest would be my favorite, even though the grand opening was very cool. I was just too exhausted after that one. OTT Fest, sort of at the end of the show, I was able to sort of sit back. Like towards the end of the night, I was able to sit back and grab a beer and be like, "This is pretty awesome." Yeah,
it was really cool.
We did
really
we did something pretty cool.
That
here.
was awesome.
Yeah. So that was one of your best memories. What's one of the craziest ones that you've had here working here?
So the craziest one we had was early on. We had this band called Jerry's Little Band. They do like a Grateful Dead tribute jam band, and they do I'd probably do some other stuff, but I didn't know who they were, and they told me that this band's pretty big. Like they're going to be a fun one. It's going to be busy. But at the time, it was still very early on, and I was using maybe 3 bartenders plus myself and a bar back, and we had been okay because it was very early. We weren't really, as busy all the time. And this band called Jerry's Little Band walks in, and then all of a sudden at 7:00, there was 400 to 500 people that just flooded through the door. And I had 3 people plus myself and a bar back, which is just impossible to try to make work. I mean, we did our best. We made it work. Everybody had a good time. It was, I think at the time, I don't even know if I had plastic. A bunch of the guys I think some of the guys from Mad Tree were up here. Some of the guys from, who else knows wherever. They're like, yeah, you really need to get plastic. I was like, yeah, it makes sense now. I was looking across the bar like in a full sweat, like, boy, I dropped the ball on this one. Yeah, they kicked my ass that night. That was a long night.
So that Monday morning, they just started putting in orders for glasses and plastic.
Oh, I bought a shitload of plastic on Monday.
So you said that you guys have known each other since 5th grade or since you've been 5?
No, around 5th grade.
5th grade?
I was good friends with his neighbor, his next door neighbor. So I'd be over there playing at his neighbor's house as my buddy, and then Gus would come outside. We'd be shooting hoops or, doing whatever, and then Gus would come out, and that's kind of how we met. We just...
The fun stuff is then, like we'd go, and this is going later into high school, like I'd go over to Davidson's house because he lives, 10 minutes from my house.
Yeah. You were in Mount Washington. I was over in Anderson.
We go to his house, and every time we were leaving, and this had to be later in high school, maybe even early into college, but his mom always said it. It was no fighting, no biting.
No fighting, no biting?
When we walked out the door, it was no fighting, no biting. Every single time. Now, again, I told you guys a story off camera about the friend that I lived next door to that maybe some people fought sometimes. And then it's funny later in life, then D goes and does Punch Out at 50 West, which was an awesome time. And it was way more fun getting to drink and be drunk before and during the fight than it was probably to train and fight. So I really enjoyed it.
So I got hired on like 2 weeks before Punch Out round 3. And you were trying to get me to fight. I had like a 2-week window, and you're like, "You ready to fight in 2 weeks?" I'm like, "No." So I ended up going. We went to Punch Out round 3, and like as soon as I walked in, I was like, "Yeah, I'm fighting next year. Like this is awesome." So it was pretty much all Gus that like got me into it.
It's a cool event. They do a good job on it. But yeah, I definitely was pushing right away. I was like, "Man, I've seen you you've thrown fists before. You got this." But all the same, you had to sit down. Like you didn't have to sit down. You had to go out and train for X amount of time and not drink and lose the weight and get in shape. So more power to you, man. Congratulations. Yeah, it was awesome. But that was the most fun I've had in an event in a long time. Professional event, collegiate event. Watching you up there because we had probably 25 of our friends. I mean, people from out of town. Fuck, Huber came in. Like, everybody was there.
When I came to walk out and I turned the corner right there, and all of a sudden I saw all my buddies there, I was like, well, I can't lose now.
Yeah.
There's no way I was losing after I saw all that. And a big part of it was you, like, getting a hold of everybody, too. Because, I mean, I talked to some people, but you got a lot of people there, too. So
I was like, dude, everybody's got to get down.
We
here.
represented for Fretboard.
He's about to fight, and everybody actually wore their Fretboard stuff, too.
Man, I had so much fun there. I don't know who was fighting, but I was in someone's corner all the time. I'm like, I don't know y'all, but like, you ready to go?
We got done. Our fight was over, and Tiff was just staying in that corner for the next fight. Like, she was still hanging out. Like,
I was feeling there's a lot of
people were like,
energy
you're rooting for this guy, and you're like, oh yeah, let's go.
I had money on some of it. I had money, and I like went up to someone like 3 days later, and I said, a Lannister always pays its debts to pay a bunch of people.
But a lot of the breweries didn't have big posses. Like,
no, they didn't.
We had the largest
we had a lot
landslide, but like,
that's sort of what I was saying though too, where it wasn't necessarily that it was like we had a ton of people that came from our brewery.
Yeah,
the owners came, some of the employees came, but D had legitimately 25 of our friends growing up.
Yeah,
that came in town.
It was impressive.
Came in to do it.
It was ridiculous,
and just made it an absolute spectacle. Because when he was going, it was as much adrenaline as I've had in a long time.
Oh yeah,
where it's just everybody chanting. It was so fun.
Yeah, it was tough for me because I was like, I wanted to enjoy it as thoroughly as I could, like everyone else was, but I had to be stable with the camera, and I needed to not get super excited because then I'd just be taking ridiculous photos.
Just all over the place.
I'm going to document this properly. Yeah.
So with Punch Out, what were you guys drinking there?
I was drinking IPAs.
That's your style.
I also don't take many days off, so when I take a day off, I'm gonna get mine in.
There you go.
Which IPA? Were you drinking Punch in the IPA, or what?
I was drinking one of the punches.
Yeah, they had a bunch of varieties. They're all really good.
I was drinking a couple of them.
I was drinking what anybody handed me. I didn't have a beer for about 2 months. So
I actually, when you finished the fight, I ran to grab you a can of something. I didn't realize they give you a damn can in the fucking ring.
Yeah.
So I ran away while everybody got to like cheers and like, everybody do the thing. And I was like, I'm going to get D a beer. I'm going to make sure I got D a beer. And I got back. He has like 2 beers in his hand. I was like, well, that's stupid.
Yeah, people were just handing me beers. I was pretty much drinking whatever. I know I drank probably 4 or 5 Rebas. I mean,
we're a little bit away from where, the back in the day doing the Natty Light Keystone tour.
30-pack of Stones for like $9.99.
How'd you go from Natty Light to IPAs?
Me personally, I think I first was introduced to Great Lakes Christmas Ale. It was like the first time I had seen maybe Sierra Nevada.
Yeah.
And like I don't consider Heineken like a craft beer type thing. It was just foreign beer. But it was Great Lakes Christmas Ale where the first time where I was like, wow, this is pretty interesting. Like I've never tasted anything like that. And I don't know if you had the same kind of thing because we were right around the same time, but it was all of a sudden, I think it was because the bar I worked at in college were Chicago people, and I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but they like just pumped this stuff in. It was Great Lakes Christmas Ale every single Christmas. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, there's some cool stuff out there. And then the next one was Bell's Hop Slam. Then I tasted Hop Slam. I was like, okay, like I really can get behind this beer.
Yeah.
Like this is something cool. And it's 10%.
It's a monster. It's a monster.
Or 10 or whatever percent it is. And I know I was, say 21. I was like, I need that 10%er. Got to go out tonight. So we just made that, and that was the first time though. Then all of a sudden, and actually fast forward a little bit, because buying beer then, say 5 years later, I'm looking at, these bigger companies that had been around, and Sam Adams or what's Fat Tire, New Belgium, places like that were starting to come in. But like right before that is honestly when Rheingeist came in, and they had Bryant was going around to every place. Who's I assume he's one of the owners, and just saying, "Hey, try this IPA." And I'd already got a little taste of the IPA from Hop Slam, where it was like, this is cool. And I like Sierra Nevada now. And he brings out Truth. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like, I like that beer. And I brought it on. And all of a sudden, you saw how that changed I think the perception in Cincinnati of what like craft beer was, because it was all of a sudden, okay, there's like a brewery in Cincinnati that can do this, and these guys can make beer. And then I think that really, and I'm sure Joe talked about how this company had a early affiliation with them making a beer, but that really changes. Like, it was just sort of like, it was like eye-opening, because then all of a sudden, then you got a Mad Tree, and you had a 50 West, and you had an Urban Artifact, all these places. And it's like, well, I'm just saying, this was 6, 7, at this point, man, it might have been 6, 7 years ago. And it was like, okay, like this actually works. Like this plays. Yeah. People will drink this. And then people started really drinking it, and they stopped drinking the simple stuff. They started drinking these local craft beers and paying attention to it. And that maybe made the decision, when I got the opportunity to come to Fretboard, that much easier for me, because I already knew I've seen this work, and I trusted the guys that I'm working with. Yeah. Or was going to work with. I was like, we're going to be good. Like, this is going to work. Yeah. I tasted the beer they already made. We just needed to make it work on this system, and it works.
So when you're not at your house and you're not here at Fretboard, where do you like to go out and drink, or where do you go? Or
I have a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. So
she just turned 1, by the way.
She just turned 1 yesterday.
Happy birthday, Sloan.
Happy birthday.
I'm either at work, or I'm at home, or I'm drinking.
I'm at home or at work.
But I'm not doing those at any place but at home or work. All right. So how about this?
You don't make it out much often. Anyway.
I don't get out often.
Okay, we're still going.
He's always recording.
Well, again, happy birthday, Sloan. We're just going to take a quick break and maybe some refills. Also, we have open mic coming back and some Singo also, which could be fun. Come check it out. Let's get some more beers. Yeah? Beers.
Welcome back to Fretboard TV. We just got some refills here. It's S230 for me.
Little improv, tried and true.
Reba.
Reba.
A little strawberry blonde. I was thinking about going a little more strawberry anyways.
So, Tiff, what is it like working here? Busy shift. You guys are slammed. What's it like working here with Gus?
A blast. We kind of like have this moment when everything starts to pick up and get a little crazy, and like the momentum, we're glowing with sweat, and we're just moving and grooving. It's his favorite words. He always,
let's go, buddy.
And then like we're just off and moving and grooving. It's fun. I think his attitude and his energy like really kind of makes the rest of the staff shine when you can see someone who's like your leader, like hustling and bustling, kind of having fun. It's like leading by example, just like, okay, now we're just going to crush it. Right. Let's do this and make some money.
And the bigger thing is like, we just start, the longer you work with people, and we've been open for, 2.5 years now, somewhere around there, everybody starts to understand how people work. So I can sort of tell who's strong in some places and who's not as strong in other places. And then you sort of make that work on the schedule. Like, I know for certain I can trust certain people to make sure that like this one single task is done. And I rely on Tiffany a lot, and I rely on Franz a lot. I rely on D a lot, even though we're essentially in different parts of the business, but I rely on D a ton to make sure that like certain things get done to make things not a disaster for me. So, I mean, it's really just, and it's making sure that everybody's comfortable, and then also making sure that everybody is motivated to keep going. And we just try our best, I think myself and the owners, to make sure that everybody's like, hopefully that everybody feels like they're getting their fair share, and we're going to keep going forward even when times get tough. Like, it's not easy now. There's a lot more to worry about now. It makes it a little harder to manage, and it makes it a little harder to schedule. Makes it a little harder to, run things in general, because we set our place up as a music venue that was going to pack places in. I talked about the craziest time where we had hundreds and hundreds of people coming in, and you can't do that anymore. So
Obviously, we always have music playing here. I mean, I get here in the morning and music is blaring. So, I mean, on a shift, what would Gus be playing? What would his choice of music be to play in here in the tap room?
Number one song is my favorite thing, Rosanna from Todo. He will. I'll even slyly throw it on to watch him just like do a little dance. It's his favorite thing. But I think even like Boston can crush some of that stuff. And it's really fun to come in because we're actually the same. We're all the same age. You might be a little bit older, but we're all the same age.
What?
We're all the same age.
You call me out like that?
Yeah, I am.
1 year, Tiff.
That's a little bit older.
Same grade.
Okay. Little bit older. Maybe not. We're the same age, but, it's fun to sit here and kind of like know where his music style comes from. And I'll be like, is this, what's that band that we like? I can't remember what it is.
Talking to me?
Yeah. Dispatch. You'll like throw some Dispatch and I'm like, this is my fucking jam.
Yeah.
Way to go, Gus. And he'll like crush it every time. I'm like, but no, it's Todo. It's Todo. That's
what was the song at the Christmas party this year? You got up and just started.
Rosanna.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah.
That's his
I haven't seen you dance in a while and you were breaking it down.
I more just like it's like the goofy stuff that makes me feel good.
Like
Todo Rosanna is a goofy ass song that I really enjoy.
You like Let Me Clear My Throat. You
I get down on that.
Yeah, you want to see Gus dance around.
Yeah. Ooh, that might be a good one to get in here.
Yeah.
We get DJ Cool.
He's just going to play that one song
my
over
only
and over again.
prerequisite is
What's going to happen?
If DJ Cool comes in, I get to get on stage and sing it with him.
Oh. Well, I feel like even though we just talked about this, I feel like I could potentially know the answer. But if you had to pick what goes on our stage, like 3 bands, what would it be?
Hold on, is this live? Is this alive or dead?
Sure. Absolutely.
All right, tell me what you think.
Toto.
No, I'm not
Dave
Toto.
Matthews. And I'd probably then go back to Dispatch.
Dispatch would actually be, I didn't really think about that one. Dispatch would be a really cool one. I'd probably go Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix. Dispatch would be pretty cool.
Man, I think
maybe, but I would also go like a Jack Johnson. Like I just have listened to him for so long. Like it'd be so cool to see him like up on stage.
So when you guys are at the house, you're hanging out or whatever, does your wife listen to the same music as you? Do you guys argue over what you're playing in the house?
Sort of. She doesn't.
She wins.
Yeah.
good.
It's different though, but she'll listen to. Because I was saying, like a Dispatch or a Jack Johnson or an Amos Lee, like I'll throw that radio on and it's very low key. Like, especially if we're sitting outside, she'll listen to it. But if it's her pick, I'm getting like old school, like teenager that was born in the late 80s. Because I got NSYNC and I got Backstreet Boys.
Oh no!
And I got
Wilson Phillips,
Blue Ivy. No, not Blue Ivy. Blue Cantrell. Blue Cantrell. I'm sorry.
Oh, Hit 'Em Up Style. That's a great song. That's a great song.
Jesus. But it's like when her thing goes on. But she's much more. Lindsay is much more into like popular radio because she listens to the radio all day.
Yeah.
I generally just listen to podcasts.
Oh, I didn't know you didn't like reggae.
Didn't you?
How did I not know this?
I
did you
100%
know?
Like, reggae is
knew
playing
that he
here,
did not like reggae.
70% of the time we have reggae on. And I didn't know you didn't like it.
Here we go. Going back to my favorite genre of music, reggae. Our head brewer loves it. I never had a problem with it. I now have a big problem with it because I've heard it for a long time. And I think at this point, I will take anything over that. And if I have a choice, I throw on like a Steve Winwood radio and let the 80s rock. I think today I put on Steely Dan radio. It was wonderful. It was a nice day. Mitch might not like it. Tiff might not like it.
I like it. It's all right.
But I enjoy it.
But would you rather take a day full of fish and fish radio, or would you take reggae?
Okay, so
I'll take reggae.
Let me
Because you got 2 options here, Brad.
Well, I can amend my earlier thought here. I hate
none of it.
Fish radio more and reggae radio just a little bit less.
All right. Well,
agreed.
And I don't
agreed.
I don't hate them personally or any of their music. I'm just tired of listening to it.
All right. That you heard it here, folks. We got to change it up in the tap room. Brad Plank specifically you will watch this. I hope you act.
I think we should call it quits because I have to go to work.
You need to go to work. Let's go.
Get to work.
Well, thank you everybody for watching episode 4 of Fretboard TV. Tiff?
Episode 4. Thanks so much, everyone. This is amazing. Episode 4. You know what episode 5 is? It's Chris Allison. It's gonna be a great time. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment and come have a beer with us.
Cheers, guys. There's nothing left in your glass.
I'm sorry.
I gotta go get another one.
Hey.